So secret number 5 is to increase your influence. And there's a couple of ways to do this, a framework that really works. And number 1 is to always be giving, always be adding value. And the reason for this is if you approach situations thinking about the value that you can add to other people, they can tell. And it's unique. You know, people are always just a little bit suspicious if like you're trying to get something from them or trying to sell them on an idea. But when you're coming from that place of value, they're like, oh, this is unusual. I like this person. And if you think everybody who's had a really huge influence on your life, they showed up for you over and over and over again. They were constantly adding value to you. Think about your parents or the teachers or some mentors that you've had in your life. That was the thing that enabled them to have such a high level of influence in their relationship with you. The other element of that is to understand people first and to be very intentional that I tend to think whenever I'm working with somebody to understand their point of view first. And if I don't know what it is that they really care about, I'll ask them. You know, and one of the questions I love, but even in a networking event, I'll love to walk up to people and say, what are you focused on right now? And what do you need help with? And they're like, wow, very few people have ever asked me that. Let me think about that. And it really changes the energy of the conversation. So asking if you don't know, and if you do know, really enter the person's world. So the model for increasing influence with people is to teach people how to think, provide a framework. And if you think about the world's most influential people, that's one of the things that they have in common. They're giving us that framework. And if you think about one of the reasons that Martin Luther King was so influential, or Mother Teresa, or even why the book Think and Grow Rich was such a million-copy bestseller, it gave us frameworks that gave us a different way of thinking about the world and about our lives. And that's one of the key elements to really having that high level of influence. The other thing is to challenge people. And when you challenge people, you are recognizing the potential in people that they may or may not realize in themselves. You're taking them to that next higher level, and that causes growth in them, and they respect you for it, and that provides you a high level of influence. So nothing mobilizes our attention any better and gets our energies going in the right direction than that demand to stretch our abilities a little bit more to meet those demands. And then finally, as we were talking about, be a role model. The people who are influential, they are great examples, and we don't believe the message that people have if we don't believe in the messenger and if we don't believe in their character. So how you show up in the world, the type of actions you take, what you stand for, that really makes a difference for people.
And I guess your role models don't have to be anyone famous. It can be people within your own lives, your teacher, place of work, friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's, you know, for me, my role models have all been those people who I've chosen to have in my life who are where I want to be. They're living that life, and then it becomes, how did you do it? And it's a very practical example of what they're doing, and that's one of the reasons why those relationships are so game-changing.
So that brings us to secret number 6.
Yeah, so before I tell you about that, let's quickly jump into the high-performance coaching model that kind of recaps some of the things that we've talked about so far in this webinar. So the high-performance origins are high performance coming from in our lives is the result of heightened and sustained levels of clarity and energy and courage and productivity and influence. And the way that we get these things, again, the clarity, the energy, the courage, the productivity, the influence, is by mastering our psychology. So just what we were talking about earlier in the webinar about mindset, our physiology, how we're eating, how we're moving, how we're exercising and sleeping. Our productivity, again, we had a lot of conversation around that, but how focused we are on getting the things done that we really care about. and our persuasion, the influence that we have with people. And all of that is underlined by the presence and your purpose.
And I guess basically to do anything, Rob, you have to know what your big why, what the purpose is, to be really successful in that.
Yes, exactly right. Yep.